If you looked at me, you wouldn't see a person. You'd see a cardigan. Specifically, a wool blend cardigan in a shade of beige that paint manufacturers probably name Admin Despair or Oatmeal Purgatory. I am 45 years old, I drive a Honda Civic that has never exceeded the speed limit, and I eat a turkey sandwich on whole wheat at exactly 12:15 p.m. every single day. To the people at Transregional Logistics, I am Amanda from Compliance. I am the buzzkill. I am the woman who sends passive-aggressive emails about font sizes and proper filing conventions. I am the gray rock of the office, a term usually reserved for dealing with narcissists, but in my case, it's a professional survival strategy. My boss, Greg, thinks I'm an idiot. Greg is the vice president of operations, a title that implies he operates things. Only thing Greg operates is his mouth and an espresso machine that costs more than my first car. He's one of those guys who wears a suit jacket with jeans to look approachable, but screams at the interns if his sparkling water isn't chilled to absolute zero. He treats the office like his personal fraternity house, and I'm the house mother he can't wait to put in a home. Amanda, did you really need to CC legal on the toner request? Greg asked me this morning, leaning against my cubicle wall. He smelled like expensive cologne and desperation. It's a vibe killer, okay? We're trying to disrupt the logistics space, not drown it in paperwork. Policy requires a paper trail for all supply expenditures over $50, Greg, I said, not looking up from my monitor. My voice was flat monotone. I practiced this voice in the mirror. It's the voice of a woman who has given up on joy. You're a riot, Mandy. A real riot. He snorted, pushing off my wall and leaving a smudge on the fabric. Don't forget the all-hands meeting at 2. Try to look alive. I'm unveiling the new transparency initiative. It's going to be huge. He walked away, high-fiving a sales rep named Kyle, who looks like he was 3D printed by a frat house. I waited until Greg was exactly 20 feet away before I typed a 14-digit code into a terminal that looked like a standard Excel spreadsheet, but was actually a masked interface for the Department of Defense. See, Greg thinks Transregional Logistics moves auto parts. He thinks we ship mufflers to Detroit and brake pads to Toledo. And we do. About 60% of our inventory is legitimate, boring car parts. It's the perfect cover. The other 40%? That's my department. I don't move mufflers. I move decommissioned guidance chips for ballistic missiles. I move volatile chemical compounds used in drone fuel cells. I move things that don't have names, just alphanumeric designations that would make a TSA agent faint. I am not a compliance officer. I am a Class 5 government liaison with a clearance level that would allow me to legally shoot Greg if he tried to look at the screen currently open on my laptop. But I can't tell them that. To them, I'm just boring Amanda. It's a lonely life, honestly. You sit there, holding the safety of the eastern seaboard in a spreadsheet, while people discuss The Bachelor over the cubicle walls. Sometimes I just want to scream. I'm not routing toilet paper. I'm routing thermal detonators, you absolute walnuts. But I don't. I just listen to stories on my earbuds to keep from losing my mind. Speaking of which, since we're getting into the classified stuff here, take a second to hit that subscribe button and thumbs up. It helps the algorithm know you like hearing about corporate idiots almost causing nuclear winter. And frankly, it makes me feel less like I'm shouting into the void. Thanks. Anyway, back to the vibe killer. The red folder sits in the bottom drawer of my desk. It's not actually red, that would be too obvious. It's a black binder labeled OSHA Regulations 1998 to 2004. No one in the history of corporate America has ever voluntarily opened a binder with that title. It is the perfect camouflage. Inside that binder are the hard copy verifications for the ghost routes. These are the transport paths that don't exist on public GPS. They are the routes our specialized trucks take when they are carrying something that goes boom. Today, the binder contained the manifest for Project Copperhead. On the surface, Project Copperhead looked like a shipment of industrial surplus lithium batteries heading to a recycling plant in Virginia. In reality, it was a transport of unstable tactical warheads being moved to a secure disassembly site. The protocols are strict. The digital file is encrypted. Screen has a polarizing filter so you can't read it from an angle. And most importantly, never, under any circumstances, is this data to be displayed on a non-secure network. I was reviewing the Copperhead route, double-checking the bridge clearance heights because tactical trucks are 6 inches taller than standard rigs when Greg breezed by again. Hey, Mandy, he said, popping his head over the partition. I need your laptop. I froze. My hand hovered over the panic. A small, unmarked button disguised as the F12 key. Excuse me? My laptop is doing that spinning wheel of death thing, Greg said, rolling his eyes, and IT is at lunch. I need to project the quarterly stats for the meeting. Just let me borrow yours. I'll plug it into the HDMI in the conference room. Boom, done. No, I said. It was the firmest I'd spoken in 3 years. Greg laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. Excuse me? No, I'm the VP, Amanda. I'm not asking. We're a team. One team, one dream, remember? Don't be such a hoarder. Just bring it to the conference room. Greg, my machine contains sensitive compliance data that is not formatted for public viewing, I said, trying to use the corporate speak he understood. It's not compatible with the projector. You and your sensitive data, he mocked, making air quotes. What is it? Social security numbers of the janitors? I don't care. I just need a browser and PowerPoint. Bring it now. He walked away before I could argue. I sat there for a moment, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was a violation, a massive one. If I gave him the laptop, I was breaking protocol. If I didn't, he would fire me, or worse, cause a scene that would draw attention to my department, which is the one thing the agency told me never to do. Stay invisible, Amanda. We need the company to look normal. I looked at the red folder in my drawer. I looked at the encrypted drive on my screen. And then a dark, cold thought entered my mind. Greg wanted transparency. He wanted to show the company what we really do. He wanted to mock my boring work in front of the entire staff to get a cheap laugh. Fine. I closed the secure window, but I didn't log out. I left the biometric key engaged. I minimized the window to the taskbar, where it sat like a loaded gun. Picked up the laptop. It felt heavy, like I was carrying a tombstone. One team, one dream, I whispered to the empty cubicle. I smoothed down my beige cardigan, checked my reflection in the dark monitor to make sure my face was sufficiently blank, and walked toward the conference room. I wasn't just bringing a computer. I was bringing the end of Greg's career, and possibly the end of the world as he knew it. He wanted a show. I was about to give him a federal incident. The conference room smelled like stale bagels and anxiety. It was one of those glass-walled fishbowls that modern architects love because it symbolizes openness, but really just means everyone can see you getting yelled at. The entire staff was there. About 30 people. There was the sales team, loud and jittery on caffeine, the accounting department looking tired, and the warehouse managers looking like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. And then there was Greg. He was standing at the head of the table, pacing like he was giving a TED talk. He had his sleeves rolled up. He was ready to inspire us. All right, folks, settle down, Greg boomed, clapping his hands. We've got a lot to get through. Q3 was interesting, but Q4 is going to be a beast. I sat in the back corner, the spot usually reserved for extra chairs and broken projectors. I had my laptop clutched to my chest. Amanda. Greg pointed at me with a laser pointer. The red dot danced on my beige wool. Pass the baton. I need to drive the ship. I stood up slowly. The room went quiet. I could feel the eyes on me, pitying, annoyed, indifferent. There goes Amanda, slowing things down again. I walked to the front of the room and placed the laptop on the podium. I plugged in the HDMI cable. The screen flickered, then mirrored onto the massive 80-inch display behind Greg. Okay, I said. I voiced barely a whisper. Greg, please be careful. There are tabs open that, yeah, relax, Snowden, Greg interrupted, physically shooing me away with his hand. I'm just opening PowerPoint. Go sit down, you're blocking the synergy. A ripple of laughter went through the room. The sales guys chuckled. Classic Greg, roasting the librarian. I walked back to my seat, but I didn't sit. I leaned against the back wall, my hand slipping into my pocket, fingers wrapping around my secure company phone. It's a thick, ruggedized device that looks like a BlackBerry from 2008 but connects directly to a satellite network. Greg fumbled with the trackpad. Okay, let's see. Where is my presentation? Ah, here we go. He opened his slides. It was standard corporate drivel. Bar graphs that meant nothing. Pie charts about vertical integration. He droned on for 10 minutes about trimming the fat and optimizing workflow. Now, Greg said, a mischievous glint in his eye, I want to talk about transparency. We have some bottlenecks in the system. Some bureaucratic hurdles. He minimized his PowerPoint. My desktop was revealed. It was clean, just a blue background. But on the taskbar, blinking softly, was the minimized window for the Department of Defense Logistics interface. You know, Greg said, looking at the screen. Amanda is always talking about her heavy workload. She says she's swamped. Let's take a look, shall we? Let's see what compliance is actually doing all day. My stomach dropped. He was going to open my files. He was going to breach containment to make a joke. Greg, don't, I said. It came out louder than I intended. Oh, calm down, Greg sneered. What are you hiding? Solitaire? Cat videos? He moved the cursor. He hovered over the minimized tab labeled Secure Node Alpha 7. Whoa, Greg laughed. Look at this name. Secure Node sounds super serious. Let's see what's inside. Greg, that is a federal, he clicked. The window maximized. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It was a high-resolution, real-time satellite map of the eastern United States. Overlaying the map were bright red vector lines indicating active transport routes. In the center of the screen, a massive dialog box popped up in stark, red letters. Classified Transport Manifest. Project Copperhead Payload. Mk-88 Tactical Warheads decommissioned/unstable current location. Sector 4 Transit Clearance. TOP Secret/NAFR in the room went silent. Greg blinked. He squinted at the screen. What the hell is this? Is this a video game? Are you playing Risk at Work, Amanda? He didn't understand. He was looking at the live GPS location of a nuclear-capable asset, and he thought it was a game. Then he did the unthinkable. Look at this, Greg scoffed, pointing at the screen. It says warheads. Jesus, Amanda, how old are you? Role-playing games, and look at this route. He zoomed in. He zoomed in on the map. On the giant screen, the exact location of the truck was visible. It was parked at a rest stop off I-95. It looks like you're routing. What is this? Richmond? Greg laughed, turning to the audience. She's playing war games on company time, folks. This is where your budget is going. He was broadcasting the location of a defenseless nuclear transport to a room full of 30 uncleared civilians, half of whom probably had their phones out. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 2:18:04 p.m. The breach was total. The data was exposed. The ghost route was visible to the naked eye. Something inside me snapped. Not a hot snap like a rubber band breaking. A cold snap like a steel bolt shearing off in deep space. I looked at Greg, grinning like an ape in a suit. I looked at the coworkers, confused but amused. You want to see what I do, Greg? I thought. You want to play the game? I didn't rush forward to close the laptop. That would imply I could fix this. This wasn't fixable. This was a level 5 containment failure. I took the secure phone out of my pocket. I didn't look at the screen. I knew the sequence by muscle memory. Unlock, biometric thumbprint, app, breach, confirm. A tiny vibration buzzed against my palm. One short pulse. Receipt acknowledged. I looked at Greg. It's not a game, Greg, I said. My voice was eerily calm. Sure, Greg waved his hand, turning back to the screen to mock the font choice of the classified warning. He had no idea. He thought he was winning the meeting. He didn't know I had just locked the doors to the cage, and he was trapped inside with the tiger. I sat down. I crossed my legs. I folded my hands over the phone in my lap. There is a specific kind of silence that happens in the wild right before a predator strikes. The birds stop singing. The wind dies down. In the conference room of Transregional Logistics, the birds were still singing, specifically. Kyle from sales was asking Greg if the warheads were for the war on high prices. They laughed, high-fived. I watched the second hand on the analog clock tick. 2:19:15. The protocol for level 5 breach is automated. It's designed to contain information leaks faster than human error can spread them. It doesn't rely on the local police. It relies on a private security contractor authorized by the Department of Homeland Security, colloquially known as the Cleaners. Okay, Greg wiped a tear of laughter from his eye. Seriously though, Amanda, delete this game off the server. It's slowing down the machine. I'm trying to pull up the Excel sheet for the muffler inventory. He tried to close the window. The mouse cursor didn't move. What the? Greg jiggled the mouse. He tapped the trackpad. Frozen. Great. Thanks a lot, Mandy. Your little tank game crashed the laptop. He hit Control-Alt-Delete. Nothing. It's not crashed, Greg, I said softly. Well, it's not working, he barked. Fix it. At 2:20:00, the Wi-Fi signal on the conference room TV vanished. The little fan icon in the corner turned into a red X. Hey, someone in the back said, did the internet just go down? My email won't load. Mine neither, said Brenda from accounting. I was just uploading the payroll batch. Greg groaned. Unbelievable. This building, I swear. Moving to a WeWork next year. I watched the lights on the Cisco router mounted in the glass corner of the room. Usually they blinked a frantic green. Now they were solid amber. Phase 1, digital blackout. All outgoing data was being severed to prevent the leak from hitting the public internet. If anyone had taken a picture of that screen and tried to upload it to Instagram, that upload was now dead in the water. My phone's not working either, Kyle said, tapping his iPhone screen. I have 0 bars. I had 5G a second ago. It's a dead zone. Greg dismissed him. We're in a concrete box. Focus, people. Since Amanda's computer is a brick, I'm going to just talk through the numbers. He started talking about synergy again. I felt a second vibration in my hand. 2 pulses. Phase 2, physical containment. Greg, I said. He ignored me. So if we look at the logistics of the Q3, Greg, I said. Slightly louder. What? He snapped, turning to me. What is it now? Can't you see I'm trying to save this meeting? You might want to check the door, I said. Greg stared at me like I was speaking Aramaic. The door? Why? Did you order pizza? Is that why you're interrupting me? Did you order pizza on the company card? Just check the door, Greg. He huffed, threw his hands up, and marched over to the glass door of the conference room. It was a heavy glass slab with a brushed steel handle. He grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't move. He pulled harder. The glass rattled slightly in the frame, but the mechanism held fast. What the hell? Greg muttered. He used 2 hands. He put his foot against the frame and yanked. The door was solid. It's stuck, Greg said, turning to the room. The handle is jammed. Kyle, give me a hand. Kyle, the human golden retriever, jumped up. I got it, boss. Kyle grabbed the handle. Yanked? Nothing. Did you lock it? Greg glared at me. Did you lock us in? I don't have the keys, Greg, I said. Maglocks are electronic. They're controlled by the building's security system. Well, call the front desk, Greg shouted. Tell them to reset the maglocks. I can't, I said. Phones are down, remember? A murmur of unease started to ripple through the room. The laughter was gone. The air felt suddenly thinner. Okay, this is ridiculous, Greg said, his face turning pink. Is there a fire alarm? Just pull the fire alarm. That releases the locks. I wouldn't do that, I said. Why not? Because I said, standing up and smoothing my skirt. We aren't having a fire drill, Greg, and we aren't having a glitch. I walked over to the window. The conference room looked out over the parking lot. Look, I said, pointing. Greg and half the room rushed to the glass. Outside, the parking lot was empty. but at the main entrance gate. Massive yellow steel bollards, the kind used to stop truck bombs, were rising out of the pavement. Heavy steel shutters were rolling down over the main entrance of the building downstairs. We could hear the faint thrum-clank of the shutters engaging. "What is happening?" Brenda whispered, clutching her notebook. "Is it an active shooter?" Panic flared in their eyes. Active shooter drills were the only context they had for this. "No," I said, "it's not a shooter." I turned back to the room. I let my shoulders drop. I let the compliance Amanda mask slip off just a little. My posture straightened. My eyes went cold. "It's a containment protocol," I said, "because someone unauthorized just accessed a top-secret Department of Defense logistics manifest." I looked directly at Greg. "You wanted to see what I do, Greg? You're seeing it. You just triggered a federal lockdown." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. They just stared at me. It was as if the office ficus had suddenly started reciting Shakespeare. "Federal lockdown?" Greg laughed, but it was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Okay, very funny. You're really committing to this bit, Amanda. What is this, a prank? Did you hire actors? Is Ashton Kutcher gonna jump out?" "Look at the screen, Greg," I said, gesturing to the giant display behind him. He turned. The map was gone. The Warhead's manifest was gone. The screen was now entirely black, except for a single, pulsating logo in the center. The Department of Homeland Security seal, and beneath it, a timer counting down from 4500. "That's a screensaver," Greg said, his voice wavering. That's just a graphic." Thunk. The overhead fluorescent lights cut out. The room plunged into darkness for a heartbeat before the emergency red mood lighting flickered on. The hum of the AC vents died, replaced by the deep, pressurized hiss of the air scrubbers sealing the intake. "Oh God," Brenda started to hyperventilate. We're trapped. We're trapped in the dark. Everyone stay calm." Greg shouted, trying to find his VP voice in the red gloom. "It's a power outage, that's all. The shutters are storm precautions. It's automatic. It's sunny outside," Kyle pointed out, his voice trembling. "Shut up, Kyle," Greg snapped. He pulled out his cell phone again, frantically tapping the screen. "Why won't this damn thing connect? I need to tweet the utility company." "There's a localized signal jammer active," I said. I walked over to the head of the table, Greg's spot. I sat on the edge of the desk. "It blocks all cellular and Wi-Fi frequencies to prevent data exfiltration. Nothing goes in or out until they clear the site." "Who is they?" asked Sarah, a young marketing coordinator who was hugging her knees. "People coming to see why Greg projected a nuclear transport route onto a wall," I said. Greg spun around, his face a mask of sweat and red light. "Stop saying that. I didn't project a nuclear route. I projected a spreadsheet. You hacked it. You put that image there to embarrass me." He was spiraling. Denial. The first stage of grief for his career. "Greg," I said, my voice cutting through his panic like a scalpel. "You took my laptop. You ignored my verbal warning. You bypassed the minimize tab warnings. And then you zoomed in on a classified asset. There are cameras in this room. The webcam on my laptop was active. They saw everything." "Who saw?" Greg screamed. "Who's watching us?" "Defense intelligence," I said, "and probably the NSA by now." Greg backed up until he hit the whiteboard. He looked like a trapped rat, but I'm the VP. I have authorization. I run this building. "You run a logistics hub for mufflers," I corrected him. "You do not have clearance for Project Copperhead. In fact, by forcing me to display that data, you've technically committed a violation of the Espionage Act." The room gasped. "Espionage?" Greg squeaked. "I love America. I have a flag on my porch." "Intent doesn't matter with level 5 data," I said, reciting the handbook I'd memorized 10 years ago. "Unauthorized disclosure is unauthorized disclosure. Negligence is not a defense." The timer on the screen ticked down, 3800. "What happens when the timer hits 0? Sarah asked, tears streaming down her face. "That's when the breach team arrives," I said. "They are currently en route via helicopter from the regional field office. The timer is their ETA." "Helicopters?" Kyle whispered. "SWAT teams?" Brenda sobbed. "Something like that," I said. "They're going to breach the building. They will secure the room. It will detain everyone for questioning. They will scrub your phones and laptops. And then they will arrest the person responsible for the leak." 30 pairs of eyes turned to Greg. "Now wait a minute." Greg held up his hands. "This is her laptop. She brought it in. She set me up. You all saw it. She handed it to me." "We saw you demand it," Kyle said quietly. "She said no. You yelled at her." "I was managing." Greg yelled. "That was management. It looked like bullying to me," said the quiet IT guy from the back row. The alliance was fracturing. The tribe was turning on the chief. "Listen to me," Greg pleaded, sweating profusely now. "We have to fix this. Amanda, you can stop this. Call them off. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them it was a drill." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had made my life a misery of micromanagement and condescension for 5 years. The man who called my work boring. "I can't call them off, Greg," I said. "I'm just the compliance officer. Remember, I just filed the paperwork. Don't give me that." Greg lunged toward me, grabbing my arm. "You know what's going on. Fix it, or so help me God, I'll fire you right now." I looked at his hand on my cardigan. Touching a federal asset handler during a containment event, I said calmly, "That's another charge, assault on a federal officer." Greg snatched his hand back as if I were made of lava. "Federal officer," he whispered. I stood up, I smoothed the fabric where he'd grabbed me. "Sit down, Greg," I ordered. Not requested, ordered. And for the first time in the history of trans-regional logistics, Greg sat down. The red emergency light gave everyone a ghoulish, sickly cast, but it suited the mood perfectly. The illusion of the normal office was dead. We were now in the belly of the beast. Okay, everyone, listen to me, I said, my voice projecting clearly without shouting. You have 35 minutes before the extraction team arrives. If you want to get out of this without being tackled and zip-tied, you need to do exactly what I say. They nodded. Even Greg nodded, looking at the floor, wringing his hands. Take out your badges, I said. Place them on the table in front of you. Take out your phones. Place them on the table. Do not try to hide anything. If you have a vape pen, put it on the table. If you have a flask, put it on the table. These guys have dogs that can smell a micro SD card inside a shoe. Do not make them search you. The sound of plastic and metal clattering onto the mahogany table filled the room. Amanda, Sarah asked, her voice trembling. What do we actually do here? I thought we shipped car parts. I sighed. I looked at these people. They were annoying, yes, but they were innocent. They were just people trying to pay their mortgages. We do ship car parts, I said. Transregional is a shell company. Well, a dual-use front. The government needs legitimate commercial traffic to hide their secure shipments. It's the needle in the haystack theory. If you want to move a needle, you don't send it in an armored truck. You throw it in a haystack and move the haystack. We're the haystack? Kyle asked. Exactly, I said. All those times the inventory numbers didn't quite add up. That was me scrubbing the weight manifests. All those times the basement elevator was out of service. That was because we were moving guidance systems into the sub-level vault. All those night shift drivers who never talk to anyone, they are private military contractors. The IT guy's eyes went wide. That's why the server room has a separate fiber line I can't access. I thought it was for executive streaming. It's a direct uplift to the Pentagon, I confirmed. Greg lifted his head. He looked haggard. Spray tan seemed to be melting off his face. And you've known this whole time? You let me run around like an idiot? I didn't let you do anything, Greg, I said. I did my job. My job is to handle the red tape so you can play CEO. My job is to keep the monsters in the box. Today you opened the box. I just wanted to show the slide, Greg whispered. I just wanted to show the transparency slide. You got your transparency, I said. Suddenly, a loud, synthesized voice echoed through the room. It didn't come from the conference speakerphone. It came from the PA system that we didn't even know existed. Attention. Containment field active. Site is under federal control. All personnel remain stationary. Failure to comply will result in neutralization. Neutralization? Brenda whimpered. Does that mean? Shoot us, only if you run, I said. Don't run. I walked over to the window again. Through the slats of the steel shutters, I could see blue lights flashing in the distance. The perimeter was being set. When they come in, I instructed, they are going to come in hard. They will shout. They will point rifles. Do not move your hands. Do not reach for your phone. Just look at the table. What about you? Kyle asked. Are you going to be arrested? I looked at him. I initiated the alert, Kyle. In their eyes, I'm the asset on the ground. I'm the one who stopped the leak. You narked on us, Greg spat. The anger was returning, trying to cover his fear. I saved you, I snapped back. If I hadn't triggered the lockdown, that image would have stayed on the screen. Maybe someone would have posted it. Maybe a satellite would have picked it up. If that shipment got hit, if terrorists or foreign actors intercepted those warheads because of your meeting, you wouldn't be facing prison, Greg. You'd be facing a black site. You'd disappear. Greg shut his mouth. I contained the leak, I said. I stopped the bleeding. You're going to lose your job, Greg. Maybe you'll do some time for negligence, but you're going to live. You should be thanking me. He stared at me with pure hatred. It was the look of a mediocre man realizing he has been outclassed by the woman he underestimated. I'm the VP, he muttered like a broken record. Not anymore, I said. The sound of heavy rotors began to thump against the glass. The helicopter was here. Noise was the first thing that hit us. It wasn't just the helicopter, it was the sound of boots on the roof. Dozens of them, heavy rhythmic thuds that shook the ceiling tiles dust loose. Then came the sound of the stairwell doors being breached. Boom, boom, crash. Oh my God, Sarah cried, curling into a ball under the table. Stay visible, I commanded. Sarah, get out from under there. If they can't see your hands, they assume you have a weapon. She scrambled back into her chair, shaking like a leaf. The door to the conference room, the one Greg couldn't open, didn't just open. It exploded inward, not with explosives, but with a battering ram that shattered the magnetic lock mechanism. The glass spiderwebbed and rained down onto the carpet. Hands, show me hands. Heads down now. 6 men in full tactical gear, black helmets, face masks, body armor, no insignias, poured into the room. They moved like water, flowing around the table, weapons raised. Laser sights swept across our backs, painting the room in dancing red dots. Down, heads on the table. I put my hands flat on the table and lowered my head, but I kept my eyes open. I watched Greg. Greg was paralyzed. He was sitting upright, staring at the muzzle of an M4 carbine pointed at his nose. Get down, the lead operator screamed at him. I'm the vice president, Greg shouted back, his voice cracking. You can't do this, I want to see a warrant. Who is your supervisor? It was the ultimate let me speak to your manager moment, delivered to a man whose job description was state-sanctioned violence. The operator didn't argue. He didn't produce a warrant. He simply stepped forward, grabbed Greg by the back of his expensive suit jacket, and slammed him face first onto the mahogany table. Crack. Greg's nose met the wood. He screamed. Subject secured. The operator yelled, "We have the hostile. I'm not a hostile." Greg gurgled into the table, blood starting to pool under his face. "I'm a taxpayer." Another operator moved down the line, zip-tying our wrists. He got to me. He saw the beige cardigan. He saw the face of the woman who had bored him to tears in the personnel files. He paused. He looked at the phone on the table in front of me, the secure ruggedized device. He tapped his earpiece. "Command, I have the handler. Target is secure. Confirm status?" He listened for a second. "Copy that." He didn't zip-tie me. "Ma'am," he said, his voice modulated by the mask. "Please stand up." Slowly, I stood up. The rest of the office gasped. Kyle, his face pressed against the table, looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes. Is she with them?" he whispered. Silence, an operator barked. The lead operator, the one holding Greg down, looked over at me. "Agent?" "Excuse me, Miss Miller. Can you confirm the source of the breach?" I looked at Greg, pinned like a butterfly. "The source is the individual you have secured," I said, my voice steady. "Gregory P. Henderson. He commandeered a secure terminal, bypassed verbal warnings, and broadcasted manifest Copperhead to uncleared personnel. He acted alone. He acted against protocol and overrode my direct objection," I said. "The staff here," I gestured to the trembling coworkers, "are witnesses. They are not combatants. They were just watching the slideshow." "Understood," the operator said. He leaned down to Greg's ear. "Mr. Henderson, you are being detained under Title 18 of the United States Code, Section 793. Gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information." "Losing?" Greg sobbed. "I didn't lose it. It was on the screen." "Get him up," the operator ordered. Two men hauled Greg to his feet. His nose was bleeding. His tie was crooked. He looked small. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who thought his title made him a king, finding out he was just a pawn. "Amanda," Greg screamed as they dragged him toward the door. "Amanda, tell them I'm a good guy. We had drinks at the Christmas party." "Amanda, I didn't say anything. I just watched him go." As they dragged him through the shattered glass door, he looked back at me one last time. The look wasn't anger anymore. It was pure confusion. He still didn't understand how the boring lady had just ended his life. "Check the rest for devices," the lead operator commanded. "Scrub everything. I want this room sterile." The silence after Greg was dragged out was heavier than the noise of the breach. The operators moved efficiently. They brought in a large, black Pelican case. It was a mobile EMP device and data shredder. "All personal devices are compromised," the lead operator announced. "Are seizing them for forensic analysis. You will be issued reimbursement forms." "My photos?" Sarah whispered. "My wedding photos are on that phone." "Should have used the cloud, ma'am," the operator said coldly, dropping her rose gold iPhone into the shredder bag. I stood by the window watching. The compliance Amanda was gone. I was just Amanda. The lead operator walked over to me. He removed his helmet. He was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes. "Miss Miller," he said, "good reaction time on the breach. We clocked the shutter deployment at 45 seconds post-exposure. That probably saved the shipment." He was zooming in on the vector lines, I said, taking a cigarette out of my pocket. "I don't smoke in the office. Today I made an exception." He thought it was a video game. They always do, the operator sighed. "Civilians, no situational awareness." He lit my cigarette for me with a Zippo. "What's the play here?" he asked, keeping his voice low so the staff couldn't hear. "Do we burn the site? Headquarters is asking if we need to dissolve Transregional. If the cover is blown, we can relocate the logistics hub to the other city. We can have this place shut down by morning." I took a drag. The smoke filled my lungs, sharp and grounding. I looked at the room. Kyle was crying quietly. Brenda was staring at the wall. The IT guy was trying to clean his glasses with shaking hands. If we burned the site, they all lost their jobs. No severance, just a confusing NDA and the unemployment line. Greg was the villain, not them. They were just the audience. "No," I said. "The cover isn't blown. They don't know what they saw. They just know Greg screwed up and the feds came. We can spin this." "Spin it how?" "Corporate espionage," I said. "We tell them Greg was selling data to a competitor. The lockdown was a counterintelligence sting. We make Greg the thief, and the government the heroes who saved the company's IP." The operator nodded slowly. "That works. It keeps the classified nature of the cargo out of it. Just makes it look like high-stakes business drama." "Exactly," I said. "Let them keep their jobs. They're good at moving the mufflers. They provide good cover." "Your call, ma'am," he said. "I'll relay to command." He turned back to the room. "Listen up," he shouted. The staff jumped. "This site is now secure. The hostile has been removed. You have all been witness to an act of industrial espionage and data theft by your former vice president." A ripple of confusion, then relief. Industrial espionage. That they understood. That was a movie plot, not a nuclear war. "You will all sign non-disclosure agreements before you leave this room," the operator continued. "You will not discuss the specifics of the software you saw. It will simply state that Mr. Henderson was terminated for cause. Do you understand?" "Yes," they mumbled in unison. "And one more thing," the operator pointed at me. "Miss Miller here is the acting site director until further notice. She's the point of contact for the investigation. You take your orders from her." Kyle looked at me. Amanda, you're the boss now? I exhaled a plume of smoke toward the shattered ceiling tiles. Apparently, I said. Now, Kyle, stop crying and find a broom. We have glass to clean up. It took 3 hours for them to process the paperwork. The NDAs were thick, full of terrifying legal language that basically said if you talk, you go to prison. The shutters rolled up. The sunlight streamed back in. It was jarring, like walking out of a movie theater in the afternoon. The feds left as quickly as they came, taking Greg's laptop and the bag of shredded phones with them. They left one thing behind, a new secure laptop for me and a direct line to the Regional Oversight Committee. The office was quiet. No one went back to their desks. They all just stood in the ruined conference room, looking at the empty spot where Greg used to stand. I crushed my cigarette out on the mahogany table, a small act of rebellion I'd wanted to do for 5 years. Okay, I said, show's over, go home, take the rest of the day. Open at 0900 tomorrow. They shuffled toward the door. Amanda, it was Brenda from accounting. She looked older than she did this morning. Yes, Brenda, is he coming back? She asked. No, I said, he's not coming back. Okay, she nodded. She paused. Thank you for whatever you did. I don't understand it, but I know you stopped them from hurting us. Just doing the paperwork, Brenda, I said. She left. I was alone in the wreckage. I walked over to the podium where Greg had tried to shine. I looked at the HDMI cable dangling like a dead snake. My phone buzzed, a text message on the new secure unit. Sender, control message, transit complete. Copperhead secure at disposal site. Good work, agent. I deleted the message. I walked back to my cubicle. It looked exactly the same. The beige walls, the sad fern, but it felt different. It wasn't a cage anymore. It was a command post. I sat down in my chair. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the red folder. I needed to file the incident report. For years, I had hated this job. I hated the secrecy. I hated the disrespect. I hated being the invisible woman, but today I realized something. Invisibility is a superpower. Greg wanted to be seen. He wanted the glory, and it destroyed him. I was content to be the wallpaper, and because of that, I was the most powerful person in the building. I logged into the system. The screen glowed blue. Welcome, Director Miller. I liked the sound of that. The next morning, the coffee machine was working, not the break room sludge pot, the Nespresso machine in Greg's old office. I moved my stuff in there around 8:30 a.m. I didn't ask for permission. I just took the keys from the maintenance guy, who looked at me with a mix of awe and terror, and opened the door immediately. I sat in Greg's leather chair. It was comfortable, even if it did smell faintly of his cologne and insecurity. The door was open. I could see the bullpen. The office was quieter than usual. There was no frat boy laughter, no throwing footballs. People were working, actually working. Kyle walked by. He saw me. He stopped. Good morning, Amanda. Miss Miller, he stammered. Good morning, Kyle, I said, sipping a darkly roasted espresso. Do we have the manifest for the Toledo shipment? Yes, ma'am, he said. On your desk in 5 minutes, make it 3, I said, on it. He practically ran. I turned to my computer. I had a new notification, a new shipment. Project Sidewinder payload, classified biological route, Southern Corridor. I cracked my knuckles. Most people think logistics is boring. They think it's just boxes and trucks and barcodes. They think the world is held together by politicians and armies. They're wrong. The world is held together by the people who make sure the dangerous things get from point A to point B without anyone noticing. It's held together by the invisible people in beige cardigans who know how to keep a secret. Greg thought this was a game. He thought he could play with the big boys. He forgot the first rule of the jungle. The loudest monkey is the first one eaten. I'm not loud. I'm just compliant. I approved the route. I locked the folder. I took another sip of coffee. Paperwork isn't boring. It's the only thing keeping the monsters in the box. And yesterday, I let one out just long enough to eat the idiot who tried to open the lid. I think I'm going to like being the boss. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.